Considering that Israel mandates its citizens join the army, speaking out against militarism from within the system can be challenging to say the least. But it's an experience that my next guest went through firsthand in trying to expose crimes he witnessed as a soldier in the IDF. His name is Eran Efrati, and earlier this summer he was arrested by Israeli authorities after conducting research into Israel's use of illegal weapons in Gaza. So, to discuss his experience as an IDF soldier and how Israeli authorities have responded to his activism, Eran joins me now. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Abby.
So let's talk about systemic racism in Israeli society. In one 3-year case study of a public school in the country, one student says, in response to a student who she said didn't hate Arabs, quote, "I was ready to throw a brick at her head and kill her. In my opinion, all the leftists are Israel haters. Those people have no place in our country, both the Arabs and the leftists." Eran, as someone who grew up in Israel, is this type of sentiment more common than not?
Yes, of course. The Israeli society is very much in a national identity, is very much in a fascist identity, but we need to ask ourselves the real questions, like why is that? Why is nobody talking about what is the interest to stuff like taking more land from Palestinians, or grabbing more settlements, expanding the settlements, or attacking in Gaza, like the last offensive, the last massacre in the summer of 2014 right now. I think people should ask themselves, because the beneficiary of this situation are not the Israeli public, it's not the kids in the school, it's not the fascism in the street. The people that really get something out of it is the people that run the country. And not only Israel, also here in the US and people in Europe.
Indeed. And you grew up with relatives who were Holocaust survivors. What was that moment that you realized how the plight of your own family related to the plight of Palestinians?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you repeat this?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So you grew up with relatives who were Holocaust survivors. Of course, there's that amazing speech of you online talking about your story. I wanted you to go over that moment that you realized how the plight of your own family related to those of Palestinians.
Well, I grew up in Jerusalem in a house full of officers. I was supposed to be the next officer in line. I'm coming from a very good family in Jerusalem. My grandpa was a war hero from 48, and before 48, he also fought against the British colonial in Israel, in the Irgun. My grandma from my other side is an Auschwitz survivor. All of our family were killed in Auschwitz. She's the only survivor of those family. When I was growing up with her, I remember waking up in the middle of the night, hearing her screamings, dreaming about the Holocaust, dreaming about Auschwitz. And as I grew up, I understood from everybody, from my parents, my teachers, my friends, that the only way that I can stop a second Holocaust from happening to my grandma or to my friends or family is to join the army to the best unit I can and stop the second Holocaust from happening. But when I'm joining the army and going through boot camp, I'm getting ready for a war. But ending boot camp, I don't find myself in one. I find myself in the occupied territories, policing people in Hebron, El Halil, a city in the middle of Palestine counting 180,000 Palestinians, and in the middle of it, a settlement of 800 Jewish settlers. And I'm there supposedly to protect them. But actually, I'm there to put terror on people in Palestine. I'm there to police every minute of their life. I'm there to take their life and control it, to go into their houses in the middle of the night, to arrest them, children, adults, women, young men, take their life sometimes, responding to protest, to any resistance to us with a very hard violence, with rubber bullets, which is of course not rubber, but real bullets, just covered with a little bit of rubbers, or tear gas canister, or sometimes live ammunition that will take the life of one of the kids in Hebron at the time that I'm there. I'm later, after his life was taken, as ordered to make sure that nobody from his family getting out of the home to the funeral, make sure that everybody is under curfew, because the Israeli army is afraid of revenge of the family and the relative. So I'm there making sure that the family does not leave the house. And as the father come out to understand what's going on, we arrest them. And when the mother of the child that our unit killed just a night before that, coming out and start screaming at us in Arabic, in words that I didn't understand at the time, I could understand every word she was saying, because her screaming was exactly like the screaming of my grandma when I was growing up and she was dreaming on Auschwitz. I understood that this time I'm not the victim anymore. This time I am the colonial force in the territory. This time, if I want to continue the legacy of my grandpa against the colonial forces, I don't need to be in the IDF. I need to fight against the IDF and against Israel in the occupied territory.
Eran, thank you so much for breaking that down. There's a really emotional story there. Let's talk about one of the worst massacres that took place during the latest siege in the neighborhood of Sujai, which killed at least 90 people. We heard that the neighborhood was being used for Hamas command centers over here. What have your contacts within the IDF told you that contradicts that?
Well, the soldiers that are talking with me are talking about a massacre that is happening because of the killing of 13 Israeli soldiers in one day. Israel is not used to lose soldiers in Gaza. We're used to something like that in Lebanon, for example, against Hezbollah, but not in Gaza. And when the soldiers are going into Gaza, they're being approached by a very strong resistance of Hamas for the first time. And they are very surprised. 7 of them of the Golani unit are dying in a very old armored unit, armored vehicle in Sajaiya. 6 more are dying the same day from different occasions with Hamas. And after that, the soldiers are very confused. They're very mad. And our Minister of Security in Israel is saying, this is the time to take off the gloves. This is the time to use the dahya tactic, dahya like in Lebanon, meaning bombing the hell out of one neighborhood and showing them that we are serious, showing them that they could not resist us in any way. They cannot resist our occupation. They cannot resist our assault. We will bomb them. And for more than 2 days, the neighborhood is being bombed by more, and this is by official IDF resources, by more than 120 one-ton bombs from the air for 2 days, shooting at them with M16s and with shells from tanks, and shooting at them for 2 days, bombing everything they can until everybody is running away or being killed in the neighborhood, and then going into the neighborhood by foot, the infantry, and catching houses in the neighborhood as bases. The soldiers are waiting in these bases, in these houses, for next commands when they are approached by their officers who tell them, we understand that you're frustrating, we understand that you're hurting your friends, we understand that your friends has died and you're afraid to die too. This is why we will give you a chance to take out your frustration on civilians in this neighborhood. And in the next morning, when the soldiers are in the houses and people are starting to come back to the neighborhood looking for their relatives, unarmed civilians screaming names of their family members when they left behind under the rubble. They're looking for them. The soldiers are drawing a red line, imaginary red line on the sand, saying it's a very used tactic in the Israeli army. It's used in Killer Cloud in 2012 and in 2009 in Operation Cast Lead, saying whoever will cross this red line that we decided on, we can shoot him because he's a threat to our life. But this time, they're putting the red line very far away from these bases, from their home, from their bodies. They're putting the red line on, and when people are coming back, looking for their families, like Salam Khalil Shamali, the 20 years old from this neighborhood, when he crosses this red line, a sniper on the window is asking for a permission to take him off. It's obvious for the people inside the house, like they gave testimony to me, that they knew that this guy and others that they killed that day was a civilian. They knew he was a civilian, they knew he was unarmed, and still they were asking for a permission to shoot him. The officer was given the permission, and he got shot once in the side of his body, in his hands. He's falling down. The sniper is asking again for permission, and the officer is telling him, wait, and the third time giving them permission to shoot.
Eran, it's a horrific video. We're watching it right now. I mean, you're basically just watching someone getting sniped to death, who's a civilian looking for his family in the rubble. It's absolutely atrocious. And you know, you talk extensively about how all of the media in Israel, and even breaking the silence, the Solidarity Group for Dissenting IDF Soldiers, are only allowed to operate under an IDF filter. What do you mean by that?
I mean that nobody in Israel, no media, no TV, no newspaper, no radio station, but also no bloggers or independent NGOs against the occupation in Israel can publish anything to the Israeli public or abroad without it going underneath the IDF censorship. Every booklet of Breaking the Silence or any other organization have to go through censorship. They're basically silencing us silence us out, silence breaking the silence, and silence all the other reporters or researchers, making sure nobody can talk about anything the army is not willing him to talk about.
Ron, in one of the speeches you gave, you said, quote, if you don't care about Palestinians, you guys should know you're next in line, of course, referring to us here in America. Why are we next, Eran? We have about a minute left.
Israel, we need to understand that the people that benefiting from something like the massacre in the summer is Israel, but it's also the U.S., the U.S. military-industrial complex, the U.S. arm trade. Israel is number 4 in the world. The U.S. is number 1 and number 2 rotating in arm trade. We need to understand that Michael Brown is Salam Shamalia. We need to understand that they're the same person. People of color in this state are the Palestinians. People of color in this state are already the next in line, but everybody else are next in line. The United States is making sure that everything that happened this summer will be silenced. If I was a United States civilian and citizens, and I urge you guys, on the TV and people at home right now to go to your email account, go to your phone, write an official letter to your representative and ask, why is your state, the only country in the world, is vetoing right now the UN decision to independently interrogate what happened in Gaza in the summer? Who is it benefiting? Why aren't you not
It's a good
working
question,
for education?
Eran. It's a very good question. Why are we vetoing that? And also, why is our military training alongside IDF soldiers here, Eran? Eran Efrati, thank you so much for fighting for the truth, for justice. Former IDF combat soldier, really appreciate you coming on.